What's up, movie viewers? Dena Views and Reviews here, asking what you watching? Well, today I am watching The Burial, starring Jamie Foxx, Tommy Lee Jones, Journey Smollett, Alan Ruck, Mamadou Ache, and it is written by Maggie Betts and Doug Wright and directed by Doug Wright. It is produced by Jamie Foxx, Julie Styler, Jeanette Kahn, Bonnie Shriver, Adam Richmond, Datari Turner, Celine Rattray, and Ian Watermeyer. Now, this movie is a drama and comedy, and it is noted as being inspired by true events. The Burial movie focuses on a lawyer and a funeral home owner. Now, the funeral home owner is played by Tommy Lee Jones, and the lawyer, Willie Gary, is played by Jamie Foxx. Now, seeing and hearing the accent and demeanor of the character, Willie Gary, just pulled me into this movie. I later learned that the movie was based on Attorney WillieGary after I started watching it. And he represented a Biloxi, Mississippi undertaker by the name of Jeremy O'Keefe, who actually sued a funeral home conglomerate called the Lowen Group. They sued the group for defaulting or reneging on a business deal that was agreed upon with a handshake. Now, I must say that Jamie Foxx's character, Willie Gary, was quite funny to me. He was charismatic, and he came off like a bit of a wheeler dealer in this movie. He was quite a smart guy. He was witty. He was a personal injury attorney to begin with, and the only concern by O'Keefe, who wanted him to hire him, is that he wasn't a contract attorney. Now, the movie opens with Willie Gary speaking on the podium at a black church. The church is called Calvary of Love Baptist, and it is located in Indiantown, Florida. And this was back in 1995. But in his speech, he mentions that it's his brother's Albert's. He's the usual pastor of this church. So he's giving the speech on this day to a full congregation that appears to be alert. They are listening to what he is saying, and they are delighted to be in his presence. He is speaking about the black church being home, a place where you can feel safe, where no one says you fit the description, a place where no one calls you out your name. And if they call you out your name, he says they call you a child of God. Home in this case representing the black church, and that was his focus. He got a pleasant response from the crowd from his message. It is clear that Willie Gary has a propensity to relate to people, and in this case he could relate to the jurors and appeal to their sensibilities in many of the cases that he had. I found this character quite witty. He was keen. He was hilarious. But it was really comical, the response from Willie Gary and his lawyer when O'Keefe approached Jeremiah O'Keefe, the person that wanted to hire him. When he approached him about trying to attain him as a lawyer, the response and the interaction was just funny to me. He wanted him to hire him to take on their case against the Lowen Company. Willie Gary and his team of assistant lawyers it consisted of other black male lawyers in his firm. And the response in this movie was kind of funny to me, but they approached him, and this is his first non-black client, a Caucasian client, a potential client, and it was just funny, that interaction for me. Perhaps it was merely the filmmakers using their artistic license. Either way, I found it to be a very hilarious scene. They were conversating like anything but attorneys. I have to admit, though, it was pleasant to see black men in a movie of this sort that weren't characterized by the typical Hollywood stereotypes that is very common in movies today. They weren't athletes. They weren't musicians. They weren't thugs or drug dealers or even entertainers caught up in baby mama drama. They were black male attorneys engaged in intellectual, cerebral, highbrow, or scholarly battles in the courtroom and in legal conversation. That is a much welcome change for me to see personally in a movie featuring black males in particular. Now, the actual case was very intriguing and it inspired me to research the character Willie Gary and the whole case. Now, in the movie, Willie Gary was also featured on the lifestyles of the rich and famous, which showed how many cases and how many millions, multi-million dollar cases that he had won. And it featured him and explained that he owned a 50-room mansion on the coast of Florida, and that he also owned a private 737 jet called Wings of Justice. And this is said to be factual, true in real life. His wealth came from winning those multi-million dollar lawsuits, and he'd won these cases on behalf of black clients, and that in itself was particularly remarkable. So for this already wealthy black man from Mississippi to from Florida to be asked to take on what would be his first Caucasian client and defend him against this huge company, this lowing group with millions of dollars in assets, and it was a great request from the client. And Willie Gary wasn't in the business of losing because he had not lost a case in 12 years. So it would be a great undertaking for him, meaning that his client, Jeremiah, reputation, and his business would all be on the line, as well as Willie Gary's own winning record being broken. So, not to mention, he would be representing his first Caucasian client as of that day, which automatically pushes the case into the headlines. Right off, Mr. Gary rejected their request for hiring him for that case. He's saying it's not a Willie Gary case, and there was not enough money involved in this case. And of course, him being a white client. But he was later convinced by O'Keefe's attorney in this movie, who was a black lawyer, that he reminded him and convinced him by reminding him of the opportunities that may come with having such a notable case, that it could cause him to become a household name, convincing him to imagine the case by putting him on the map and comparable to Johnny Cochran. Going up against a $20 billion a year death industry. So he was able to convince him to take the case and remind him again of the opportunities that could come from that, the notoriety, and how it could excel him to even bigger heights. And it would place him, little did he know, directly at odds with the opposing attorney, who was known not to lose a case, that was hired by the Lowen Group. Because once they realized what O'Keefe had done by hiring a black lawyer, of course the company hired a who's who of black prominent attorneys and compiled a group of very prominent, and intentionally, wittingly, they hired them to defend their company as well. So that team consisted of a group of shrewd, clever, and astute lawyers, with the lead attorney being played by Jurnee Smollett. I think her name was Mame Donce. She graduated at the top of her class from the Howard Law School and had the nickname the Python. She would be a worthy opponent. And this is why I gave this film a 4 out of 5, because I admired the gusto of Willie Gary and his I hate to lose spirit. He wanted to win. That's what he was about, winning. Even when he was abandoned by his own team of lawyers who got scared of what it could turn out to be. These people were members of his own firm, and they left. They got scared. And even the team of lawyers that were hired by the client, they turned fraidy cat too. And they ran from the battle. He stayed the course. Most were afraid of losing the case and believed the case was just too impossible to win. The company just had too much that they could fight with the low-end company. So Willie Gary was not fearful. He kept up the fight and he ended up winning the verdict, which was $500 million. It was so large, Lowen couldn't even afford to appeal it. They had to pay, $175 million to settle the case. Lowen even tried to sue the United States government, claiming Gary had whipped up jurors. Also in this movie, the real Willie Gary makes a cameo in one of the post-credit scenes. Jamie Foxx is in character as Gary, and he's walking down the hallway of the courthouse, and he runs into this other guy, and the other guy is the actual Willie Gary. And he looks up at Jamie Foxx and he says to him, "I want to be just like you when I grow up." Now, I have to note that when researching information about Attorney Willie Gary, there were some cases that were listed where some of his clients had posted accusations against him, alleging misconduct and unethical behavior on his part. Even accusations reported by the New Yorker that alleged that Gary made an agreement with the Lowen Group as part of its 9-figure settlement, in which the company paid Gary a $20,000 a year retainer for 3 years upon settling that O'Keefe case. And this was so he couldn't sue them again. They're saying, in their opinion, they're alleging that that was also unethical. Either way, the burial is rated R. And if you would like to check this movie out, you most certainly can, because it is now streaming on Prime. If you have not already, be sure to subscribe and leave me your comments on this movie. And check out my upcoming review. This has been Dena Views and Reviews. Join me for my next movie review and or recommendation. And I want you to remember, it's my view. Now, what are you watching?